that spaceship might be going somewhere. They can take me.
Only thing I think of when I see that clip is that scene from Friday when John Witherspoon is saying, you ain't got to worry about catching a dog. You got to worry about a dog catching you.
I ran away from home with my brother, and that's what has me in fear of dogs. A dog came after me, a German Shepherd, and bit me.
Quick story.
So you keep joking like, yeah, I got bit by a dog.
I understand.
Your fastest 40 times.
I didn't have no fancy suit like that to jump on. No, for him to jump on me.
Oh, is he wearing the dog suit that you can...
Oh.
Wait a minute.
Just yes,
This
Jenna.
was on purpose?
Oh, my God. Yes, Jenna, but hold on. Quick story.
Why would you do that?
I mean, because look at it. What do you think?
It's a trained dog.
It's a trained dog.
It's a military dog.
You think it's the Michelin Man out there? I mean, who's running? But let me tell Chris Canty and America's Story real quick. This last summer, Cece and I went to go see Odell at a house he has in Los Angeles. He's got, if anyone knows dogs, Presa Canaries is what they're called.
They're huge.
They're
like
of
human
them.
beings.
They are 160 pounds plus. Three of them. Man, Chris almost didn't go in. They were outside the back door. Chris almost didn't walk in the front door. He's like, I need no.
And Odell said if he gets a little rough with us, they'll break the glass.
And then he showed it. He had one of his buddies come over and start tackling with him. One of these dogs right into ran. Oh my!
That's why Odell needs that new contract. You got to feed them dogs.
Yeah, man.
You got to take care of them.
Oh my goodness!
I don't know who he was leasing that house from in L.A., but
They're gonna be upset when they get it back.
Ain't no way he getting that deposit. That money gone. This dog boo boo everywhere.
All right, sticking with the NFL, Cowboys finished 9-7, missed the playoffs last season. Eagles finished 13-3. They missed literally nothing last season, yet Jerry Jones says, hey, there's not that much of a gap between the two teams. CeCe, how big of a gap is there between the Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, there's a certain amount of reality, and I never won a Super Bowl. So I've been chasing a lot of teams, chasing Jerry Rice, chasing the Cowboys, chasing Green Bay. In Philadelphia, chasing the Giants, they won. Chasing Washington Redskins with Joe Gibbs, they won. So I feel like I have a great perspective on analyzing where a team is and actually where my team was. And, man, I always made a mistake, man, Chris. I always thought we was a lot closer to them than we really were. It was kind of like that little sign in your mirror. It said, objects in the mirror.
Closer than they appear?
They're closer than they appear. Like, they are not that close to Philadelphia. They were no more close than we were to Dallas Cowboys or the San Francisco 49ers. Only time we got close to them is when we went out and got Moss. That's when we got closer. And that's when I knew, man, it wasn't the difference between how far we behind them. It's, man, right now we can play with anyone. And they did that a couple of years ago with their draft. That's how they got their quarterback, and that's how they got Zeke. What have they done since then? The offensive line, in the last 2 years, they haven't gotten better. Right. We could say that last season, as that unit, that was the worst season that they've had. They couldn't add anyone in free agency this offseason. So, no, what Philadelphia has done, adding to that, what Howie Roseman has done, adding these little pieces, Mike Wallace, Chris Long coming back another year, Bennett trading him from Seattle. I mean, how would you like to have maybe a 7th or 8th defensive lineman be Haloti Nada?
How about that?
Yeah.
What about that? I mean, a silent assassin in your locker room.
Yep.
Like, so, Jerry, I've been doing this a while. Hey, Jerry, you're a lot further away from them than it actually really appears, and you need to be more concerned about some of them other teams in the NFC, too, just besides the Eagles.
Yeah, the New Orleans Saints and the Minnesota Vikings, and we see the Los Angeles Rams are staffing up as well.
And I'm pretty sure Aaron Rodgers is going to play this year.
Pretty sure he's going to be back. Chip on his shoulder, literally, I guess. But when you start looking at the two teams, the Cowboys and the Eagles, I think the separation is clearly defined in the caliber of defense that they're bringing to the table. I mean, you can make an argument for the skill position groups. You can make an argument at the offensive line positions. I think both of those could be considered washes. But when you look defensively at what the Philadelphia Eagles are bringing to the table, their front seven is about as good as anybody in football. And the depth that they have up front. See, when it comes to playing good defense, you have to have good depth up front. And when you have the glut of pass rushers that they do, add Michael Bennett to a group that has Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox and all of those guys, Derek Barnett, the rookie that we saw last year, they're going to be a tough out for anybody. The Dallas Cowboys.
Question for you, Chris. Sorry to cut you off, but I think it's important because I never won. After you won that championship, did that make y'all better as a team? Like, how does that transfer into what you can do moving on because now you know you're a winner compared to, oh, I think we're pretty good.
Exactly. It's the difference in psychology, right? We think we can versus we know we can. We've done it before. Having that experience makes a difference. But that being said, it's hard to eat when you're full. So we'll see if there's a Super Bowl hangover with the Philadelphia Eagles. Can Doug Peterson's coaching staff keep these guys ready to go again, because you have a condensed offseason? But back to the comparisons with the defense and the defensive lines, when you look at the Dallas Cowboys, it's like they playing spades with pass rushers. They got two in the possible. Like they got David Irving, they got DeMarcus Lawrence, and a bunch of other guys that maybe sometimes
when they moved Brandon Graham inside in the Super Bowl,
that was the difference in the game.
Yes.
That was the difference in the game. The Cowboys, outside of DeMarcus Lawrence, don't have somebody that can close out games that way. Nobody on third down, nobody in the 2-minute situations, nobody in end-of-game situations. Those are the critical phases that you have to be good defensively, especially if you're a team built like the Dallas Cowboys to play with the lead with that running game.
Well, and as far as the hard to eat when you're full component, that is one of the reasons these off-season acquisitions could be so good for them. Haloti Ngata didn't come there to not win.
Now, I know his physique don't tell you he hungry, but based on NFL winning, his stomach is growling.
Right.
Wherever he at right now.
Absolutely. Michael Bennett didn't go there to not win. Mike Wallace, who at least Bennett and Haloti have won. Mike Wallace hasn't done any high-level winning in this league, at least not since he left Pittsburgh. Like, he didn't go there to not win.
Only winning he's been doing is at the bank.
Exactly right. He's been cashing a lot of really good checks. So the other thing is this. It's really hard at any point before a season to evaluate teams because what do we know? Well, injuries are going to happen. Like, oh, I thought that the Houston Texans could have been this, but injuries, you know, J.J. Watt, they were merciless, their quarterback, right? What do we know about Philly? Philly lose their left tackle. No problem. Lose their middle linebacker. No problem. Lose the corner they went out and got, Ronald Darby, for 10 weeks with a broken ankle in week 1. No problem. What do you know about Dallas? Lose your left tackle. Oh, I can't win without him. Lose your middle linebacker. Well, with and without Sean Lee. Like, you can't ask us to win games without Sean Lee. It's Sean Lee. What are you talking about? It's Ray Nitschke.
The Eagles quarterback.
The
they lost their franchise quarterback. The other guy steps up, wins the Super Bowl.
And Jenna, that's the wild card. Like, y'all can talk about all these other names. Oh, they got they got this at defense. They got this. This guy's won. The quarterback ain't won nothing. He got a point to prove. We are a better team with me than without me. I know what y'all was saying about Nick Foles. Man, Carson Wentz is a dude, though. He got a Super Bowl ring on, but he didn't earn it. And I can guarantee you that's going to be the driving force in Philadelphia's locker room. Chris Long, is this his last year? Jason Peters, you know something about him? He got a lot of pride. They might have got a little better, boss, when they lost you at left tackle. So those components right there, that they would have enough hunger and their movement in free agency, that stops people from being complacent. So I think they have enough of the components. They really have realistic chances to repeat because of those wild cards. Carson Wentz didn't win with this team. Some of the other veterans that they've added, which I will believe will keep them hungry in 2018.
And the point you were alluding to, like, and when we talk about quarterbacks, like we mentioned the teams ahead of them, like not even mentioning the head being Dallas, not even mentioning the teams right there with them, like Carolina, Atlanta, Seattle, depending on what you think of San Francisco. Now we're at 8-9 teams in a 16-team conference. But also, when it comes to quarterbacks, like Wentz, Rodgers, Breeze, Cam, Russell Wilson, there's 5 quarterbacks we know are better than Dak. He's trying to decide, where am I amongst other NFC quarterbacks? Alex Smith, Kirk Cousins, Matt Stafford, Matt Ryan, Jimmy G, Jared Goff. Like, we're talking about a conference with a lot of good teams, a lot of good quarterbacks. So I understand why Dallas would put the target on the defending champions back. But to get to that last step of the ladder, there's a lot of steps you got to go in between with a lot of really good teams and really good quarterbacks between you.
All right, moving on. Were you just thinking to yourself, you know what, I have not heard a lot about RG3 in the last year? Well, the former rookie phenom quarterback is back on a team. The Ravens are signing Robert Griffin III to a 1-year deal. He wasn't on an NFL roster in 2017, played only 5 games in 2016. Both tremendous signs for a great 2018, she said sarcastically. Chris, can RG3 still be a productive quarterback if he's healthy? Let's just start with that. Does he still have the skill set in him?
Well, I don't know about that, Jenna. I think it's a little bit curious, the timing of the Baltimore Ravens announcing the signing with Ozzie Newsome and John Harbaugh being deposed in the Colin Kaepernick collusion grievance that he filed. But
The day before.
And the day before.
They're going to have to be deposed. They signed RG3. Go ahead.
No, you're right. No, they didn't even sign him yet. They just announced that they're going to sign him. They're going to sign him next week.
Had a good workout last week.
Yeah, they're going to sign him next week.
Yes.
We just want everybody to know that. But when you start talking about RG3's skill set, I don't know that he's evolved enough as a passer to be able to have success. And if he can't win from the pocket, if he can't win without relying on his legs the way that he has in the past, then I have a hard time that he's going to stay healthy. If he's not going to be available, I don't know how effective he's going to be moving forward, even as a backup option. Right. Because if you're having to turn to your backup quarterback, that means your starting quarterback is knocked out of the game. So if you're in that situation as a team and you don't have a reliable backup in terms of a guy that you know is going to be available and can take the hits and can go through an NFL regular season, then what good is he as a backup option?
I believe he's a backup quarterback. I believe the question should be, is he good enough or have the skill enough to be a backup quarterback? Because that's what he is. It's not as if we're asking him to start 6 games for Baltimore. That's if we start 8 games. Is he good enough to be a backup? And if I'm looking at backup quarterbacks, one of the things I would like to have in a backup quarterback is a guy who has some type of experience. Now, y'all might consider that to be bad experience, but it is experience, starting experience of playing in the NFL. There's another thing I'd like to have in my backup quarterback. It'd be like some type of talent. RG3 does have some type of talent. He does have talent to be able to throw the ball. He does have to evolve into a pocket passer, but that only comes with time. When you run a 4.3 and you've been the fastest man on the field, even after your rookie year, he was the fastest man on any football field that he's ever been on. It's hard to change from that. That only comes with time. His confidence got totally destroyed. He made some bad football decisions, him and his dad, as far as the style of play that he wanted to, the type of pressure that he put on Mike Shanahan there in Washington, and the turmoil that he created in that locker room. But he's still good enough to be a backup quarterback in this league. Yes. Are there 100 quarterbacks better than RG3? No, but you're never going to know that if you don't give them time. I just believe in NFL teams, especially in quarterbacks, because it takes a lot longer for the cookies to get done. You can sit in the NFL locker room for years, and a quarterback, he might finally get it. I saw Rich Gannon. Didn't play early in his career. Later in his career, he went on to be offensive MVP there in Oakland with John Gruden. So I believe it can happen. Like, these aren't, the quarterback is not the position like other positions. I believe it can be cultivated. I believe it can be developed. That one time he could come into a game and your starter gets hurt. He might go to replace him for 3 or 4 games. I do believe he's worth the 1-year investment because of talent, because of he spent time starting, and because he's got some, man, talent needs to be cultivated. Like, every dancer needs a stage. And I just believe at some point you surrender what you know as far as being an athlete. You surrender to the coaching and become a pocket passer. I believe he can get good enough to be able to do that.
Listen, I've said multiple times on this show that I don't think black quarterbacks get a fair shake as backups. We got a lot of bad white quarterbacks sitting on benches. And it feels to me like if you're a black quarterback, even in 2018, if you're not good enough to be a starter, it's very hard for you to get a job as a backup. I feel like they're playing by a different standard. And so I understand that. I think people probably would expect me to be a fan of the RG3 signing because I'm also a better on talent. As CeCe was talking about talent, like one of the reasons I'll deal with all the Odell stuff. Give me all the talent in the world. RG3 to me, though, checks a bunch of boxes that are not boxes I want checked for my backup quarterback. One is the injury part of it. Because if Joe Flacco goes down, at the very least, I want to know the guy who has been my backup is going, even if he's not great, is going to be able to go out there and give me a month of football if I need him to. RG3 is as injury-prone as any quarterback I've seen in the last decade. So that's one box. Another box is I don't want my backup quarterback to be a divisive force in my locker room. Now, I think that was an unfair knock on Cap. I don't think he was divisive in the locker room. Might have been divisive amongst the fans. Might have been divisive amongst the owners.
Neither one of them were liked in the locker room. The real truth, RG3 was not liked in the locker room, and Cap was not liked before the protest in the locker room.
Okay, well, maybe before the protest in the locker room, but nobody was keeping him out of the league before the protest. Post-protest, he won whatever the award is for voted on by his teammates.
Yeah, that don't mean the teammate that we like. That means teammate that showed the most courage. Okay. And it did take courage.
CC's right. CC's right on that front about the cap thing.
So we can get into the cap thing, but let me just finish this real quick. I don't, and whether RG3 it's fair or not, that guys seem to at each stop he's been at not love him in the locker room. That coaches at his first stop in particular haven't loved him and his father. That is to me a real thing. And so there are RG3. If I were a Ravens fan, this is not the guy I would want as my backup quarterback. Now, I understand the idea of if you want to say we have no hope as a starting quarterback and we just are going to roll the dice that he's not going to get hurt, we're going to go talent over a McCown brother, talent over one of these guys, fine, I suppose. But for those reasons, I understood why RG3 was out of football last year.
The Browns last week traded Cody Kessler. Now, there's a market for him. There's a market for RG3. Now, I wouldn't trade a warm six-pack for Cody Kessler, all right? And there's a bunch of bad quarterbacks, all right? So, like, let's just spread it around, all right? I'll take his experience, which none of them other guys have.
Yes.
And Josh McCown, y'all tell me when he was good. Forget about bad. Forget about getting hurt. When was he any good?
I'm with you. And he just signed another contract with the Jets.
Right, but
ain't nobody on TV telling him he shouldn't have no job.
No, I think there's separate categories to a degree. I think there's separate categories from what you're asking out of Josh McCown and what you're asking out of RG3. And I think Josh McCown, you saw it when he got injured last year, the effect that it had on what the players were saying about him as far as what a rallying force he is in the locker room. Again, I'm not out here advocating for Josh McCown. I just don't think RG3 is not the guy that I think has gotten an unfair shake in this league. I think there's plenty of guys that have. I don't think RG3 is one of those guys.
All right, Chris, thanks so much for hanging out with us today.
Thank you guys for having me.
It's always fun. That wasn't an awkward goodbye at all. Coming up, just how good was Lonzo Ball's rookie year?
I'm not going to let it go.
Nope,
We're going to break it down.
She'll never let it go.
Next on First Things First. I was just saying that was a
I'm
good
gonna have
in and
a
a good
graphic
out.
tomorrow with all the bums that's playing in this league.
Yeah, it's a lot.